so I call the order with the date. Okay? I'm going to call a meeting to order for July 1st, 2024. Roll call, please.
You got it. Commissioner Erickson? Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Gibson?
Here.
Vice Chair Howard?
Here.
Commissioner Prickett?
Here.
Chair Taylor? He is absent today. Okay.
Okay. Joel, you want to lead us in?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. That's this one over here, right?
Your agenda just followed from here.
Okay. Well, we have approval of the meeting minutes for June 17th, 2024. Do we have any discussion or any revisions or concerns about those?
I do not.
Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes
Mm-hmm.
for
June 17th.
June 2nd.
17th, 2024.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
And Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Vice Chair Howard?
Aye.
Commissioner Prickett?
Aye.
Okay. Then that's you.
That's me.
Okay. Take us to it, Donna.
Take this to the, all right. Oh, my pile.
So last time we had a workshop, we kind of talked about 4 kind of categories. Got pretty good consensus on the kennel definition changes and updates. But I gave you some homework to do, and I just need kind of the finishing touches of direction on 3 categories. Then we'll go back and rework those, and at our next workshop, we'll have a redlined version of these darn things,
Okay.
all these code amendments that we think we want to move forward. So the 3 areas that I need help and direction from you on, the first one starts off with the noise ordinance. So at the last meeting, we talked about the city of Eagle, the city of Rathdrum, city of Sandpoint. Our current is this kind of ending column. That's what we have today. And then we'd had a request to review the city of Rathdrum's with some amendments, and those proposed that they were brought forward by email are all the way to the right. So I just need to know if we're thinking about kind of shoring up our noise ordinance based on the information that you were presented at the last workshop. Kind of identifying a variety of types of noises, whether they're landscape maintenance noise or construction noise. And then another list of, to the annoyance of others, because our code, that's basically what it says. Don't make noise to the annoyance of others. That's it. If we want to add something in there that talks about vehicle and or portable equipment noise within a certain distance of the property line. So you guys need to just kind of tell me what you're kind of thinking so I know what I'm kind of amending or if I'm not amending it at all.
So help me with what is the proposed, where did that proposed come from?
We had a member of the public come to a couple of council meetings and propose amendments to the noise ordinance. So we were directed to incorporate those requested changes into our miscellaneous codes to bring forward to workshop with the planning and zoning. So hence here we are.
Okay. Do we have any comments? Any concerns,
What
any
does staff
thoughts?
think about that?
Well, as you're kind of cruising through the as you're looking at various code ordinances throughout a variety of cities, I would say that our noise ordinance is, our noise section is in one spot, and it is just the fact that it's, you can't make noise to the annoyance of others during these times. And that's it, that's all it says. It doesn't really define what those noises are. It doesn't really identify that construction noise, for the most part, that loud, construction kind of behavior. We don't have a really short construction season per se, for a variety of subdivision construction and what have you. It's a really narrow window that you're not in the middle of a snow season. We don't distinguish those two kinds of construction, noise or not. And then we don't also distinguish the fact that you might want to get up earlier or you might want to be out later at night when it's cooler on either end to do your yard maintenance. So you're really not afforded that opportunity under the current code. So,
So how is that, your last statement is that you don't have the ability to do the landscape at either end, but if we only have what we have listed there at the top, then it encompasses both of those others,
It does.
doesn't it not?
absolutely does.
Okay.
Yeah. Year round.
So do we have a problem with this? Is this something that law enforcement gets called on a regular basis?
In the summertime, absolutely.
Yeah?
At what time?
And the
The early morning ones.
wording that we currently have versus the proposed wording, will it change anything in the way that law enforcement?
Only if we define those uses, because in the documentation that you were given for the city of Eagle, it defined all of those various noise-producing kind of behaviors. We don't have any definitions of noise creators, So again, I'm not suggesting we have to, I'm just giving you their request, that they requested is more modeled off of the city of Rathdrum's.
Do we have any idea, let's say that we changed the wording and we gave law enforcement the ability to define it better. Do we have any idea how much it would cost us in taxpayer dollars to enforce this versus what it's costing us under the current wording? Would there be a change or would it be the same? Is it just giving more teeth so that people can, or, bigger hammer so people can get whacked hard? I mean, what are we trying to accomplish?
I think that what the applicant's proposal is to reduce the amount of time that you can make noise in the evenings. So as for an example, they're identifying that currently our ordinance allows you to make noise up to 9 p.m. Monday through the whole week. You can make some kind of racket in your yard until 9 p.m. You can have events and parades and public assemblies until 11. Those are on main streets. You can have stuff going on in the park until 10, and then by special permit, you can actually go as late as midnight in special instances, kind of notifying your neighbors and what have you. And what they're proposing is that in no case for a list of, activities other than landscaping, in no case can you make noise, whatever that noise is, past 7 p.m. So the question is that between 7 p.m. and later, somebody's going to then be calling the sheriff's department to enforce this. And they're going to be looking to figure out what the to annoyance of others is. I mean, and then how enforceable is that at the end of the day? Is that fair?
You said that correctly.
And then the other thing is that they're proposing that on the weekend on a Saturday or Sunday, where right now you can start making noise, whatever it is, at 7 a.m., they're proposing that the only way you can make noise at 7 a.m. is if you're doing some kind of landscape maintenance, mowing, weed whacking, what have you. Otherwise, you can't start making noise, whatever that is, to the annoyance of others until 9. So it's really that window, that 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. window, and then that 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. window that would be different between our current code and what they're proposing.
Yeah, I personally like our current code. I wouldn't change a thing. I think the rest kind of just restricts more so what you can actually do in the summer. And, like you said, we only get 3 months to really do stuff, so.
I'm,
I'd like sandpoints on the construction till not 10, but I would go to 9. Some guy gets off work at 5, gets home, eats dinner, and the guy's building his own deck. You're gonna drag it out for 120 days because the guy can't swing a hammer at 8 o'clock at night, or at 7:30 at night in June. I don't like it.
well, the-
Party's not even really getting started like until 7 for dinner. I mean, we have people over on a regular basis and for barbecuing or something like that. I mean, we'll set dinner for 6, or something like that. But by the time maybe the brisket goes over on the smoker or whatever, by the time you put it on, it's 7 and you're eating and whatever. I think 9 o'clock is fair game. I think after 9, okay,
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
fine.
That's what I think.
Yeah, especially during summer.
Yeah.
yeah, because we've already talked about this one,
We have.
and we pretty much all agreed that we have such a short window where the weather is agreeable to be out at 9, and it's still light, that I can't see changing that. How do you feel about the 6 a.m. Monday through Friday?
I think that's fair. Everybody's getting up at
Versus
6 a.m. to go to
7.
work.
Or the 6:30?
And I think we should really make the summer July, August, September, because after seeing this June. July through September.
June through September, yeah.
June was just an extended April.
I don't have a problem with 6 a.m. Monday through Friday.
Okay,
But what are we saying happens at 6 a.m.? You can start
That's
making
when you
noise
You
at
can
6?
start
when they
making
can
noise at 6
start.
a.m.
Yeah.
the noise.
Would you agree with that on construction, or you just talking about general
Yeah.
noise?
You can't get them out to your place in the first place, you know what I mean? And when you finally get them there,
You gotta get them when you can get them.
get working.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. 6 a.m. Great.
So how do you feel about specifying, or does it need to be specified if we're keeping the same times? Does that make it easier or more difficult on our law enforcement?
Well, if you don't have them broken out into types and varieties of noise, I don't know that it matters whether or not you define them. Am I right or wrong, Wanda? Yeah. Whereas if you
know they
break
just
them out
can't-
into types where you have a longer window that you can do work, then maybe that makes sense to define them.
So what's gonna happen, midnight on January 1st, and what's gonna happen on
In 4 days from
4th
now.
of July, and what's gonna happen on,
Law enforcement doesn't do any enforcement really on noise on the 4th of July or New Year's,
Good, good,
as it should be.
yeah.
Okay.
speaking from a place of knowledge.
And I'm one that I go to bed earlier even on those days, and it is annoying to me, but I'm not gonna be a joy kill for everybody else.
Keith, I got some melatonin for you.
I'm just saying.
All right, so the consensus is to leave it alone the way it is. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right, not a problem. I'm going to leave this up here just as kind of a example. So when we looked at billboards last time, we kind of looked at, the fact that they, have a height above the ground and that they have a certain length and a certain width. The jurisdictions that we were looking at had minimum sign faces that were less than 400 square feet in total. So that's the piece I want you to kind of think about in the back of your brain a little bit. We had rattled out some ideas about proposed code amendments for the billboard signs, whether they're poster, bulletin, panel signs. I don't know that we really differentiate in any of our code based on poster being smaller and bulletin being a little bit bigger. I think they're just pretty much billboard signs. We had talked about the fact that we wouldn't allow any new billboard signs except through the annexation process. We had talked about the location as only being allowed adjacent to Highway 95 in commercial and light industrial zone designations. I still don't know what to do with the sign that currently exists on North Government Way. If we need to put some, or we just leave it in non-conforming use land, or if we want to recognize its existence and put some language in there that identifies that if it's removed, if it comes down, it has to be moved to an appropriate location, or if the face moves to an electronic face, that it has to meet the same requirements as, maybe. I don't know what to do with that particular area of sign, and I'm looking for direction.
Okay.
We had identified that because these signs are so much larger than the normal allowed sign in the commercial or light industrial zone, that would require a conditional use permit.
So
And-
Donna, can I ask what would, or are you going there right now?
I'm heading there.
Okay, I'll leave,
I think I'm heading there.
Okay.
So when you require it to have a conditional use permit, you're requiring it to meet the same standards of approval as any other conditional use permit. And so that means that it has to meet the kind of, I just lost the conditions of approval. You have the conditions of approval up there?
or signs.
For signs?
For conditional use
conditional
permits.
use permits,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I think you guys do in your book.
I think they're in front of everybody in your books.
Well, we don't really do books anymore.
Two. Granddad's there for a minute.
Okay, got it right here.
Is that this one? Or this one?
This is the. Do you want me to bring it over to you?
No, just hunting in the code.
1173. Yeah.
correct?
You found it at the same time.
Okay, so the proposal is in accordance with the general objectives or with any specific objective of the comprehensive plan and/or zoning ordinance. So this would be, Title 11 is the zoning ordinance, and Chapter 5 is the sign code. So that's why it would be in conformance of that portion of the zoning code. The second piece is that the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will be adequately served by streets, police, and fire. Any drainage structures, water, sewer, schools, you have to make sure that all of those other agencies are okay with this sign and where it's proposing to go or how it's proposing to be changed. And that the design and planning, to include construction, operation, and maintenance, are compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses and the intended character of the general vicinity. So you have to make sure that those three standards are met for a billboard sign. And then, if they're along the Highway 95 corridor, there are IDAPA regulations that need to be also met. And so those design requirements are found in section 120 of the handouts that you guys all got last time. It's interesting in that particular section of 120 that it identifies size minimums, maximums, size maximums. So what it identifies is that these signs can't be longer than 50 feet. They can't be taller than 30 feet. That's the sign itself. That's not the distance from the ground up. Okay, that's the sign itself. And the maximum total signage can be up to 1,000 feet. Now, the reason I wanted you to note that is because the entity that we were looking at for bulletin size billboards had a maximum square footage of 378 square feet. That's like that's about a third, a little more than a third of what the state allows for. State also identifies in that same section 120 that maximum signage is for the billboard itself, and that doesn't take into account any of the additional on-site signage that would be to the individual, could be to the individual commercial establishment on that property. And so if it's the Planning and Zoning Commission's kind of direction that we were to still use those IDAPA regulations, maybe a way to kind of encapsulate that 1,000 square foot number is to identify that that's the maximum total pole signage for the property. So if there's a 400 square foot sign or already on the property, the maximum sign size. Do you remember that off the top of your head, Shannon? Maximum sign size in commercial
480.
for poles.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Come on,
Remember?
she knows this sign code
480 square
inside out
feet?
and backwards.
It was something like that.
It's 480.
Those depends on the numbers.
So, commercial and light industrial on Highway 95. Is 300 square feet. That's the maximum size you can get on a sign for an individual commercial sign to go up. So 300 square feet. So that means you could get a billboard that's 700 square feet. I don't know if that's what you want.
So that's why okay, so a couple of things.
Playing with a lot of numbers here, I know, but
if the maximum sign in our code right now, right?
for an individual site's pole sign,
Yes,
it's 300 square feet.
okay. Do we have to acknowledge and allow the IDAPA?
You can be more restrictive, but you should be cautious with that.
So I guess what I don't think we want to see is we say no more signs, yet if our regulation is 300, but IDAPA's is 1,000, just rounding everything, does that mean that they could put?
No, they have to
More
follow your
signs.
city code.
Yeah, they have to
They
follow
could
city code.
make a bigger one where the smaller one is now.
They don't get to come in and say, but IDAPA says I can have a larger one, so I'm going to ignore your city code. Did I misunderstand your question?
Instead of having one this big, they could take that one down or add to it and make it this big on the same pole, same property, same. And what we're being asked is, do we want to allow that or don't we?
So,
Can we not just say something like, signs can't be improved? They like, we don't want Vegas style, cinema, electronic, whatever, signs. They can be lit up with lights if they have them, but if they don't, they can't add them, or I don't know. Can you do something like that? Like the one on Government Way is not lit up. So if you just said, if it doesn't have lights, you can't add lights. No improvements, as is.
Kind of not fair just to throw that at her. Like, seriously.
That's why she's here.
Ouch.
Because we don't have a beef with them as they are. We're not trying to change them from what they are. We just don't want them to
Be changed.
really change from what they are, right?
But we want them to be maintained in good working condition.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And IDAPA says they have to be maintained in good working order, right? Why don't we just leave it as we have it and just say, as long as it conforms to IDAPA?
Because IDAPA
Because the
allows
DAPA
them to
lets them
be
make a
1,000.
Yeah,
300
we
foot
don't
sign
wanna
into
word
a
it that
1,000
way.
foot sign. So it
And
has
maybe,
to,
and maybe you do, I mean, that's.
can you
that's why
say it
when
has
you're-
to conform to the more restrictive of the two?
Well, that's what I kind of tried to do with the next section that was talking about the electronic message board piece. So 120 talks about where you can put it, you know, how close you can put it to another sign along Highway 95, that's another billboard. Talks about the fact that you have to kind of stagger them so they can't line up like domino effects. Talks about where they're located in, with respect to on-site signage. It talks about message board signage, you know, and how that kind of is lit up a little bit. And I had Shannon kind of look through that, and there is very little difference between the IDAPA code and ours. So maybe it makes, what we're trying to figure out is, does it make sense to point our code toward IDAPA and then pick out parts of it that, that we identify are more stringent for the city code? Or does it make sense to rewrite our code, pulling in part of what IDAPA has?
If IDAPA
in their code?
changed,
Yeah, then we have to watch it.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to
so,
just be.
so why don't we
pointing.
ditch IDAPA and just say, in Hayden, this is how we do it. And what you have, we're not gonna, you know, that's fine, it's grandfathered, not grandfathered, I know.
Right, and the only reason that I brought the IDAPA regulations into the conversation is there are properties along Highway 95 that have specific easements on them for signage that reference IDAPA. So in an effort to try to minimize conflict points, maybe it doesn't make sense, I'm not suggesting it would. It has to, I'm just trying to give you all the information, that's all. Maybe it doesn't make sense to have all signage move that direction. Maybe that only applies on those properties that have those easements. I don't. So, two more things. I'm just going to kind of keep going through this briefly. I kind of went up and down Highway 95 hunting for the view of a historical or architectural building of architectural or historical significance, and I haven't found one. So, I love history, so it's important to note that. I'm not certain that this will not block the view of a structure of historical or architectural significance.
Even needs to be there.
Makes sense. And then this must meet zone designation.
Architectural significance isn't the same as historical.
This is correct.
And something could be added that has
In the future.
architectural,
Okay.
that isn't there now.
It's a finding, so if we leave it in there, it's one of those standards that they're gonna have to show that they've either met or it's not applicable, just as a matter of purpose. So that's fine to leave it in there, I'm fine with that. Architectural is a good point. I was rattling around in historical world, but,
Historical could be from the 50s, but historical could also be 2024 and 30 years in the future when, I don't know, someone wants to change something and put something in and you want to protect
good
it.
point. And then the last standard that is identified is must meet zone designation and/or transportation corridor location standards.
of which most of what we have doesn't.
Because they're non-conforming signs today. They're not addressed at all in the code.
Right.
Because if a non-conforming sign comes down, totally is removed, then if it's not replaced within a year of the time that it came down, it can't be replaced.
Fonda, what was the word we can use when we can't say grandfathered? What was the
Non-conforming.
Continued non-conforming.
continued non-conforming?
And so then the problem, this is where we kind of got here, I'm going to kind of reiterate how we landed here. We landed here because we're removing the off-site signage language from the code, because if you don't review what the context, what the text or the statement is on the sign, how do you tell that it's off-premise or on-premise? That's the first thing. And the second reason that we're here is because if they replace the paper sign front with electronic sign front, if they just do that, I don't have a way to permit that because it's a non-conforming sign front for a front. And if it is adjacent to the highway, we want to ensure that it's not a safety hazard that they're creating. And we want to make sure that it doesn't blind everybody on the highway, nor keep the residential that it could point to awake at night.
Is there any way that we can write our code so that it doesn't permit electronic signs?
Yes,
Then
but you better be careful with that, because you have schools with electronic signage and.
Well, but we're just
we're
talking
talking
about
about
these specific
I'm more
ones.
concerned
Just
about
about
highway
highway.
So
billboard.
we have one that's in process today going toward electronic signage. So that is almost out the door.
Yeah, it's-
Which one was it?
we can't talk about specific signs,
So,
but that, as far as
But
I'm
it's
concerned,
one of these on the list.
that application
It's not
is
triple
already-
play.
It's already in. Yeah. It's done.
so if it's already in, that means the code's not established, so therefore they can
Fully aware of
do
that
what
fact.
they'd like to do.
Yes. So, yeah.
So then it doesn't matter because it's continuing non-conforming.
Correct.
Yeah, so we don't care. Okay,
Oh,
so
No,
it's
it's not that
irrelevant,
you
it's
don't
moot.
care, it's that you can't do anything.
There's
about it.
nothing that we're gonna do about it right now. All we can do is what we've been asked here. Is there a way to say, follow this part of IDAPA, but not this part?
No, you won't refer to IDAPA in your code.
no.
You will
I
just
see.
You'll just-
take the language
The
from
language.
IDAPA and incorporate it in a more restrictive manner.
Okay, so let's suppose that I'm an ornery guy and I own one of those signs and I
It's not a first draft.
take it down, redo it, whatever, and I add 3 more feet all the way around. And I didn't ask anybody, I just did it. How would we know? Do we have measurements on what's out there right now? Are we gonna get measurements on what's out there right now?
Potentially, if they come in for sign permits, yeah. When they come in for sign permits.
So as part of their maintenance, if they just added a border that they could usable space it, or maybe they don't have the, Vegas style electronic whatever, maybe they put up a big projector like that, and they project a movie.
It's on Highway 95, you're gonna see it, and somebody's going to complain, or somebody who works here is going to notice. There's gonna
Agreed.
be an enforcement action.
Yeah? So, but only if we say you
Pardon?
only if we say you can't change the size.
Yeah, yes, if your code doesn't
What's
allow.
permitted is what's here, but no upgrades. Maintenance is required, but no upgrades, no,
You have to define all of that.
Yeah, it's very vague.
But today, as a non-conforming sign, we don't have anything in place that doesn't allow them to change their to make changes. That's where why we're here.
Okay. So what specifically would you like us to address? Because I think we're all in agreement that we don't want them Domino style. We don't want them Vegas style. They already are closer than our current code allows. And so they're all pretty much already non-conforming. So does that mean that they would all need a CUP if anything was changed on them?
Yeah.
And how is that CUP process handled?
Same as any other CUB process.
Comes to us?
Yep.
So then what are we looking
And
for?
then you're looking for standards of approval. That's what these findings are
Looking
that
for
are in
these.
for you. So I'm trying to get some direction as far as, how big are you looking at wanting to allow these to become? Or maybe not, maybe they're the size that they are, although that's hard to enforce if they're varying sizes.
You'd almost have to take your biggest one and write your code somewhere around that.
Except the biggest one is already larger than our code.
For a pole sign, yeah,
Or a pole sign.
Right.
correct. So these would be their own category of themselves, billboard signs. Would you not say?
Yeah.
Right. Or under pole signs, it'd have billboards under there. I don't know, we'd have to look at it.
Can we not just start with just one item and all of us just agree on one item and then go to the next one and all of us agree on that and then be done with this?
So I guess what I'm looking for is, I don't want you to agree specifically, I just want you to give me some directions. So my first question is, are you looking for a maximum total of signage for the lot for all pole signs?
Let's start
Or,
with the low-hanging fruit. Does anybody want Vegas-style electronics? I don't. Does anybody else want Vegas-style
I think Joel
electronics?
does. I'm teasing.
The big cowboy tip in
He
his
was
hat?
very
Yeah.
excited about that.
Go to Vegas.
If I
I like it, I
lived,
do every year.
if I
Go
lived
there.
in those apartments on Lancaster and that thing was going, yeah, I'd rather not have that at nighttime coming through my window.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm against it. It's not, that I like it or don't like it. It's that I'm trying to be considerate of people who are trying to sleep.
What about how big is the sign in front of Walmart?
It's our biggie.
Yes.
It is, so can one be non-conforming in its size and us not make our code to meet our largest
You
sign?
could make your maximum size extremely restrictive, and because that sign is in existence today, it would maintain its non-conforming status.
Right, but
But
would,
no new ones could go up.
that's what I was asking.
But aren't we
Could
trying
any
to say
of
we're
the
not letting
others
any new
use
ones
that as
anyways?
justification to go bigger?
I don't know, you're giving Donna direction on that.
Okay, next, low-hanging fruit. Are we in agreement that we don't want any more?
I'm fine with more, but I think that the biggest that we should have is the one by the Walmart, and then no electronic signs. Oh, but you can light a sign, like have those little lights that shine up on it, but no like electronic signs.
Yeah, no computerized stuff.
Yeah, nothing like that. That one at Triple Play is just, I don't like that one. But if
We need to be careful not to identify specific
Oh, I'm sorry.
signs.
But the one at Triple Play doesn't matter because it's not one of the ones we're talking about.
Please don't mention triple play again.
no quadruple sits.
I'm saying there are no signs, never mind.
I like the big one by that gigantic box store, and say like nothing goes bigger than this, and you can have projected lights, but you can't have electronic light or an electronic billboard.
Well, we're not really coming
we
up
do
with
that?
consensus because I'd like that one to stay non-conforming and us not be that big.
I agree.
Okay, so are you happier with this, like a 400, less than 400 square foot sign conversation? So they're a little bit bigger than the maximum that you're allowed of
1,000.
300 square feet, or,
Bigger than what you have now.
What's the biggest one we have now?
no, our code allows for you to have, in the, commercial and light industrial neck of the woods, up Highway 95, It allows you to have, if you have 600 feet of frontage on Highway 95, you can have a 300 square foot sign. So my question is if your regular pole sign can be 300 square feet, and you're looking at a billboard sign, do you want it to be like 400 square feet, a little bit larger than your 300 that you're allowed because it's a billboard? Or are you thinking not bigger than any other standalone pole sign?
I'd keep it the same.
So the 300 would be,
So as an example, the Albertsons pole sign that's out in front of the Albertsons, I don't know that I'm not supposed to use examples, but it got a conditional use permit and a variance when it first went in, and it's larger, it's closer to that 400 number, although it's vertical.
You can use examples. What we can't have is them making public comment complaining about any particular
Correct,
sign.
I agree with you. So that isn't, I mean, just as a size-wise, that one's about more than, closer to the 400 number. And it actually got a variance to the sign permit. Sign, you can request a variance. It did when it went in because it was a multi-tenanted sign that went in, but it's still considered a pole
And I
sign.
would say 300 on all of them with a cup if they so choose.
if they're bigger than that.
Yeah. I think everybody's reasonable, multi-tenants like
Okay.
that. I think that people would be willing to, I think everyone's reasonable enough to allow negotiation on something that's gonna have multiple.
So if it's a single business, 300. If it's a multiple business, then conditional.
Conditional use, well, not
Billboard.
just multiple, if they want bigger than the 300 for any
Doesn't even have to
reason.
be multiple, just,
Okay.
but I think everyone's reasonable enough that they would understand the difference between packing 8 companies on one versus
One.
one.
So are we then handling billboards the same as an actual
Pole sign.
brick and mortar sign for its own business?
Because we're not treating them different, because we're taking out off-premise signage.
Okay. So that's what we're better to just handle them the same way as we handle the others. Then I definitely wouldn't make them bigger.
Yeah.
Unless they had a conditional use
Unless they
permit.
have a conditional use. So then we have to, so it's really then you need direction on what those conditions are gonna be.
Right, which brings me back to this slide.
Okay?
So they'd still have to meet the conditional use permit standards of approval. Does it make sense where they're putting it? Does it meet the requirements in the sign codes? And intent to the sign codes.
Our current electronic message center code states that the electronic portion of it can't be larger than 50% of the whole sign.
Okay.
So if-
So it would still allow for some electronic message component.
unless it's called out specifically.
Oh, like the lottery, says how much the
Just-
thing
right.
is
Okay.
up to.
Just to know.
I see.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important that we have the consistent signage codes because we are getting more Highway 95 businesses. And they're going to have signs.
Correct.
So we need to allow them to have their signs. How do we then say those are okay, but billboards aren't? Additional billboards aren't.
Right, which leads you back to this conversation about, your size maximums. So if it's a 400 square, I'm gonna use that as a number. If it's a 400 square foot sign and it's 50 feet long, it's 8 feet wide, 8 feet tall. Right? I don't think we have any of them out there that are only 8 feet tall. You've got them like 10s and 12s, but then they have to be shorter to get to that number. I'm just using that as a beginning place. But if you have a combination of a billboard sign and a pole sign, you know, is that person that is only allowed 300 square feet of frontage, are they going to say, yeah, I don't want one that's just for my site. I want to do a bigger one that includes my site and rent out part of this space for, maybe they'll do it that way. I don't know. Okay, so I think I've got your idea. I think that part of, let us work up some language. You want it all rolled into the current code. You want to treat them like the other pole signs. You want our message board signage to apply. At that 50% potentially we'll throw around with that. You want it to have the conditional use permit findings. And you still want to include these last three at the bottom, will not negatively impact the visual quality of public open space, won't block a structure of historical and architectural significance, and must meet zone designation and or transportation corridor location standards. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, and I'm concerned about the electronic portion. I would still say that they would still have to meet these standards, because what if that electronics either A, affects traffic because it's so bright late at night, or B, affects residents and affects their quality of life because it's shining in their windows at night. So could there be that it has to be toned down even at the 50%
Correct.
at
So
night?
under the electronic message board sign, it identifies that it has to be equipped with technology that automatically dims
Okay,
the electronic message center according to ambient light conditions.
okay,
The display shall not operate at a brightness level of more than 0.3 foot candles.
This all has meaning.
Yep. As measured using a foot candle meter. And the preset distances have a measurement in there as well. So what that means is, as an example, is that our current code for like a commercial site plan, for example, that code says that you have to have a minimum of 0.2 foot candles everywhere on the site, that like your parking area and your circulation, wherever you're planting your lamps, and that you can't have more than 1 foot candle at the edges. So this 0.3 is significantly less bright than what most of your commercial sites are lit at night,
okay,
as an example.
okay.
And that's what our code currently says. It has some other stuff in there too, but that addresses the foot candle question.
Okay.
Okay, we'll work up some red line language and bring that back to you guys in a workshop and see what you guys think. But I appreciate the help, because this is,
Did you really feel like we
yeah, you
got
did.
some direction?
Absolutely got somewhere, so I appreciate that. Yep. Gives us some direction. Yep, yep.
Okay,
Okay, so we brought a bunch of stuff forward, sent you guys a slideshow, gave you lots of links you could click to your heart's content about wetland. And so I'm still trying to get a feel for, do you want a lot of in-depth language about wetland code? Do you want me to reference it and direct people to other sources? What would you like me to do? Or maybe not anything at all. It's
Can you
entirely
pull
up
up the
to you.
map that shows how much wetlands we have?
Maybe. I don't think it's in this one. I'd have to go look for the other.
There you go. You are so good. My biggest concern is that we don't have staff that are experts in this. I'm nervous about putting much language in our code other than to direct applicants to the experts because we aren't experts.
How much of that is in City of Hayden proper?
These are in Hayden Canyon up here, and those are all addressed in their master development agreements and what have you. This one that's in here is in a subdivision that's already under development currently. And that's it.
So we really don't have much at all.
There's a little bitty hunk up here in our area of city impact that comes from this channel here.
Is that off
But
Lancaster
it's-
somewhere?
It's just west of Strayhorn, south of Lancaster.
Okay. Okay. Unless you guys feel anything different, like I said,
I'd leave it alone.
I'm nervous about doing anything but just point them to the experts.
I kind of don't feel like even mentioning them at all because we have so little. I mean, if we had all the rest of it up there outside, up north and maybe, but I don't think we have enough to really mention or bother with.
Is there risk in not addressing it in our code at all?
Well, it's addressed.
It's
I mean,
addressed.
It's already addressed. The question is, do you want any more robust language than is already there? And I think,
What's the current code say?
Our current code identifies that we would contact a variety of agencies that have control over wetlands and request for them to give us feedback or direction or mitigation requirements if there are any.
so your comment is what our current code does.
It sounds like you were there when you guys wrote it.
I would leave it exactly as it is then.
Yeah. I would too.
Is there any downside to leaving it just the way it is?
I think that it really just needs to be, the question has come up, and so we have a board upstairs that's in the corner of my board, and when we do miscellaneous code updates, anything that was on the board gets brought before the planning and zoning and or city council
Appreciate that.
to review and determine whether or not it makes sense to add or modify the code to address potential concerns. What I don't like to do, and I never have, is do knee-jerk reactions to code amendments. So as an example to that, many moons ago, I want to say, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, we had a subdivision that was preliminary platted, and it went through construction of the subdivision. And then they got to the point where they got final plat and approval of infrastructure. And at that point in time, the code required the developer to record the final plat. And most people would go record the final plat so they could sell lots. In this particular case, the final plat came just about the time there was a downturn in the market. And so they didn't record the final plat, but we had approved public infrastructure now not within public rights-of-way. And so as a knee-jerk reaction to that conversation, the city code was changed that required the city to record all final plats and associated documents at the county. There is another jurisdiction in the area that records the final plat on behalf of the developer or gets in the middle of that conversation to ensure that it would record. And in fact, the process at the county has changed since that code went into place. And what had happened previously is that the city would take that plat down to the county and the recorder's office, the surveyor's office would sign it, the city surveyor, and he would walk it across the hall to the recorder's office. They would record it, he would take it back and call whoever the heck had the plat, and they would come pick it up. Now, the city takes it down to the surveyor does his stuff, and he calls the owner to come pick up the plat, walk it across the hall to the recorder's office. So what have we solved in this process by adding this piece of code for this one developer and this one subdivision? A lot of work for the city to track down plats and no farther along on the recordation of the final plat process.
So would you like us to address that one?
Not
No, not today.
No, not today, not part of today. But
Maybe that should be in the miscellaneous pile.
it is, but it's not a miscellaneous to come to planning and zoning.
Okay.
But anyway, that is one of the things that happens as time, but we do need to bring them forward so that everybody has an opportunity to weigh in, so.
I say we leave the wetlands
I'm-
code as is.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with leaving our
Okay.
code
All right,
pointing to the direction of the residents.
so those are the only 3 areas that I had questions about. You've been very helpful with those ones that we were having difficulty with. We can go back and take a stab. It's hard to draft when I don't know what the heck I'm drafting.
Yeah.
Well, you do a good job, Donna.
So that's your reports.
I'm
Not yet.
heading there next.
Oh, that was the workshop part.
That's the workshop.
Now the reports, okay.
So, City Council is hearing the One Place Church annexation request as public hearing on Tuesday night. They also will be receiving a copy of this summary recap as part of that meeting. We are not here to discuss this tonight. It's entirely for your reading
Okay,
benefit.
okay.
And then after the council has reviewed the summary as well, staff will be looking for redirection or direction, one or the other, I'm not sure which.
Okay, I'm not understanding.
So you were tasked with having an open house and a public comment period.
Yeah,
And that has occurred.
yes.
And so this
I
is a
remember that.
summary of that
Okay.
event,
Okay.
actions,
Input?
input from the public. It hasn't been analyzed, it hasn't been anything, it's just been together. And this gives you, was your meeting, and I was darned if I was gonna give this to the city council before the planning and zoning had an opportunity to have it
Okay,
first. So you guys have got it.
okay.
Because council's going to get it on
Because
Tuesday.
council's gonna get
As
it on
in tomorrow
Tuesday.
night?
As in a week from
A
tomorrow.
week from tomorrow. So we have a chance to read this and go, I don't recall that happening, or this is what it is.
This is what
and
it
This
is.
is what they're getting.
This is what they're getting.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Just
Okay.
wanted you guys to have it first. Anyway, then they're gonna peruse it and have a chance to do the same thing, and then we look for them to give us
So they're
direction on next steps.
They're being handed it just the way we are,
There's
just
a-
for their review, or is it part of a discussion in their meeting?
They may have some discussion in their meeting, it's part of unfinished business. So,
Okay,
They will have in the council memos that go forward, they have a section on the master memo that talks about fiscal impact, and so we will be adding the, kind of the man hours associated and the costs associated with doing this activity to that memo, but that'll be the only difference between that, what they're getting and what you're getting, just that additional paragraph.
And so you may want to watch that meeting after the fact, that portion of it,
watch all of their
to
meetings.
see how that goes.
At 1.5, I can't do it.
You can
as-
go and fast forward.
Yeah, I have to do fast forward.
So the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting is a joint meeting with the city council. It is it's a follow-up to the March 18th meeting that you had with the developers.
Oh,
So they will be here presenting and
It'll be a similar format,
it's a little different.
Little different.
Yeah, a little different format.
a
but
joint
they're-
conversation with you guys, council and developers.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I will be sending a reminder email out to that effect.
Okay.
We do have a couple of projects that are close to potentially becoming public hearings, the first meeting in August.
Okay. So at what point would we address this with city council?
I don't know yet.
Just whenever it happens, okay?
Yeah, Yeah.
You may not,
right.
Okay,
so.
okay.
We're just kind of following the process.
I appreciate it.
And we'll email this out to the commissioners that aren't here tonight.
And there were other layers of the onion on the comp plan. What will trigger us to go to those other layers?
It'll all
Or
be
say leave them
determined by
be.
city council.
I
I'm
think the
assuming
real
in the future.
question right now for council is going to be, are the goals and policies as currently drafted and worked on by all of you in need of any tweaks based on this public input before that information would go to a consultant to say, if we made all of these changes, does it impact our chapters
Okay,
and how?
okay.
Did I say that
okay.
Yeah,
correctly?
you're great.
Okay, that's exactly what I was looking for.
So what we're looking for from council now is whether or not they believe this public input impacts what's currently in draft form.
Okay. That's,
And they most likely will be given it similar, I mean, I will be handing it to them and letting them go forth and digest, and then they'll most likely come back at some future meeting and tell us what we're doing.
okay, okay, all right. And those were your reports?
That's it.
That's it? Does anybody else have anything they want to address?
When's our next meeting?
15th, 2 weeks,
Great.
Okay.
at 5:30.
Be there or be square.
Do we need a motion or just a gavel?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
As a motion.
That's all you need.
Okay, awesome. We're adjourned.
Great job, Mary.
Okay.